No one dared to speak when Nicholas Vance entered a room. He wasn't just a billionaire. He was power incarnate, cold, calculated, feared. The kind of man who could buy your company in the morning and have you forgotten by lunch. He never smiled, never paused, not even for his own son. Tonight at the grandest ballroom in New York, Nicholas was making his rare public appearance, with cameras watching, investors whispering, and a silent child by his side. That child was Eli, 10 years old, bound to a wheelchair, speechless, forgotten even by the man who shared his blood. But what no one knew, what no one could predict, was that a waitress named Maya, a nobody from the back of the kitchen, was about to do something so defiant, so unthinkable, it would bring an empire to its knees. And all it took was a dance. Nicholas Vance entered the Hilton Imperial Ballroom like he owned it, because technically, he did. The ballroom had been donated by his conglomerate to host the Hope for Tomorrow Gala, a fundraising event for children with disabilities. The irony? His own son, Eli, rolled silently beside him, pushed by a personal assistant, not even by Nicholas himself. Eli's dark curls fell over his eyes, his frail frame nearly lost in the sleek black tuxedo. He didn't speak. He never had. No one knew why. Nicholas had spent millions on the best therapists, doctors, and programs. None could fix his son, and so, slowly, quietly, Nicholas stopped trying. He showed up tonight because the board advised him to. Publicity, charity, humanity points, nothing more. He nodded to donors, raised a glass, gave a speech written by someone else, all while Eli sat in silence, unnoticed, but not by everyone. From behind a line of flutes and folded napkins, Maya watched them. She was a waitress tonight, just another temporary gig between shifts at the diner and her volunteer work teaching dance to children with mobility challenges. Maya had the posture of a ballerina, but the grit of a street fighter. Raised by a single mother in Harlem, she had no time for billionaires and their icy detachment. But something about Eli caught her eye. She noticed the way his fingers twitched to the rhythm of the violin playing in the background, the way his eyes followed the spinning chandelier lights like they were dancing. There was life in that boy, hidden behind walls. Walls his father clearly never cared to see. Maya's grip tightened on her tray. "That poor kid," she muttered under her breath. "He's the Vance heir," another waitress whispered. "Practically a prince." "Then why does he look like a prisoner?" Maya asked. As the night rolled on, Maya was assigned to table 7, Nicholas Vance's table. She approached with caution, balancing glasses like a tightrope walker. Nicholas didn't look at her. He didn't look at anyone. He stared at his phone, eyes cold. His assistant whispered something to him, probably about market trends or speech points. But Maya, she knelt in front of Eli. "Hey there, handsome," she said softly. "You like music?" Eli didn't respond, but his eyes locked on hers. She noticed it then. The smallest movement, a twitch in his wrist, a shift in his foot. The beat of the music was in him, caged. Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. "You want to dance?" Nicholas finally looked up. "I didn't hire you to flirt with my son," he said coldly. Maya stood up slowly, unflinching. "You didn't hire me at all, Mr. Vance. I work for the gala." He narrowed his eyes. "Then do your job. Serve drinks." She turned and walked away, but not before slipping Eli a wink. Something stirred in the boy's chest. An hour later, the main act began, a young pianist playing a soulful jazz number. The lights dimmed, the ballroom floor cleared, and couples began to dance. Maya watched from the corner. Her feet itched to move. Then she saw Eli again, sitting alone in his chair. Nicholas was across the room, shaking hands with investors. This was her moment. She walked up to Eli, slow and graceful, like a dancer taking center stage. No words, just a hand extended. Eli blinked. She didn't pull him to his feet. She didn't need to. Instead, Maya moved beside him, swaying gently. She touched his shoulder, then his wrist, guiding it softly. Left, right, tap. Eli followed. 1, 2, pause. Eli smiled. For the first time all night, Maya placed his hand on her waist and turned, letting his chair spin with her. Gasps rose around the ballroom. A waitress, dancing with the billionaire's disabled son. Phones came out. Cameras flashed. Nicholas turned. He froze. What the hell is she doing? Nicholas marched toward them, fury flashing in his eyes. Maya turned as he approached. He's dancing. You're making a spectacle. I'm making a moment, she replied, eyes locked with his. Eli looked up at his father, confused, the joy in his face fading. Nicholas's voice dropped. Back away from him, now. Maya hesitated but stepped aside. The music ended. The room fell silent. Nicholas bent down, wheeled Eli away without a word. The boy's hands trembled. His eyes welled. Maya stood alone on the dance floor, surrounded by whispers. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She simply walked back into the shadows where she came from. But someone had caught it all, on video, and by morning, the world would be watching. At 8:13 a.m., Nicholas Vance opened his inbox to find an emergency PR alert. Subject line, damage control needed. Urgent. Confused, he clicked. One video, just 12 seconds long, but enough to break the internet. In it, a waitress dancing beside his disabled son, Eli smiling, spinning gently, alive. The video had 2.7 million views and climbing. Hashtags, Chudik let him dance, Silent son, Shabrich Svancer smiles. Naiduri, who as your news anchors called it, the most touching moment of the year. One blogger wrote, this boy smiled more in 12 seconds than we've seen in his entire life. And every comment beneath asked the same question. Who's the waitress? Nicholas slammed his laptop shut. Find her, he barked at his assistant. Back in Harlem, Maya had no idea her face was on every screen. She woke to a dozen missed calls and a line outside her apartment. Reporters, strangers, even parents of disabled children. Someone had found her name. A boy in a wheelchair handed her a note. Thank you for letting us be seen. Maya's hands trembled. At the diner, people clapped when she walked in. At the studio where she taught part-time dance therapy, the phone wouldn't stop ringing. Her inbox was flooded with emails. From families begging her to teach their kids, from disability advocates, from networks offering interviews. But she ignored them all, because what mattered most to her was Eli. Inside Vance Tower, executives debated. Some wanted to spin the story as a heartwarming family moment. Others wanted Maya silenced, legally, quietly. But the most surprising voice came from the board chair, Meredith Lang. Do you realize, she said slowly, that this girl did something you couldn't do in 10 years? Nicholas sat stone-faced. She reached him. That's irrelevant, he snapped. She overstepped. No, Meredith replied calmly. She connected. Nicholas's jaw clenched. She exploited my son for attention. Meredith leaned in. Or maybe she reminded us that your son is a person, not a PR inconvenience. Silence. You want to shut her up, Nicholas? Meredith said. But the world already heard her. 3 days later, Maya was summoned. No lawyers, no cameras, just a private meeting in a skyscraper conference room. Nicholas sat at the head of a long table, alone. Maya entered without flinching. He didn't stand. Miss Fields. Mr. Vance long pause. Nicholas studied her like a commodity. You had no right to touch him. You had no right to ignore him, she shot back. He frowned. Do you even know what it's like? She continued, voice steady. To be invisible in a room full of people? To be alive and unseen? Nicholas leaned back, arms crossed. My son is not your charity project. No, she said. He's your son. That hit harder than she intended. Silence filled the room. Finally, Nicholas asked, what do you want? She blinked. What makes you think I want anything? He paused, then said flatly, everyone wants something. Maya stood. I want him to dance again. Then she walked out, and for the first time in a decade, Nicholas Vance was left speechless. That night, Nicholas did something he hadn't done in years. He sat across from his son. No assistant, no phone, no distractions, just father and son, a tray of dinner, and silence. Eli stared at his food, then at Nicholas, then at the floor, tapping his foot to music playing faintly from a speaker nearby. Nicholas noticed. Do you remember the girl? He asked gently. Eli didn't speak, but he nodded. Nicholas leaned forward. Do you want to see her again? Pause. Eli's hand moved. He formed a small, shaky circle in the air. A sign, yes. Nicholas exhaled. It was the first word he'd ever received from his son. 2 days later, Maya received a call. This time, it wasn't a threat or an interview request. It was an invitation to teach Eli, privately, exclusively. Maya hesitated. This wasn't about fame or money. This was about him. She said yes. They met in a private studio inside the Vance penthouse. Eli rolled in quietly. Maya greeted him like an old friend. No cameras, no reporters, no Nicholas. Just music and movement. Week after week, Maya and Eli danced. Not with feet, but with eyes, with hands, with subtle turns of the chair. Each movement was a conversation, and slowly Eli changed. He laughed, he tapped beats. He even whispered words. 1, address A, time, left, turn, again. Nicholas watched from the shadows, every session, every smile, and something inside him, long dead, began to flicker. But good things never stay quiet. One leaked photo, one anonymous post, and suddenly the media exploded again. Waitress turned dance therapist helps billionaire son speak for first time. Nicholas Vance hires viral waitress. Is it redemption or PR stunt? Nicholas was furious, but Maya stood her ground. You can't put the lid back on this, she told him. So what do I do? He asked. She looked him in the eye. Let the world see him, not you, not your brand, him. Nicholas didn't respond, but later that night, he made a call. Schedule a press conference, he said, and bring my son. Nicholas Vance never lost control. Not in the boardroom, not on Wall Street, not even when his wife left, whispering that he'd lost his soul. But tonight, his hands were trembling. The viral video was everywhere. Disabled boy leads dance step with waitress. Billionaire father watches coldly. It had crossed 10 million views overnight. News anchors were debating it. TikTokers were dissecting it. Activists were calling him heartless. A senator tweeted, leadership begins at home. And Maya, the waitress, the girl who dared, she was gone. Nicholas sent private investigators to every corner of the city. She wasn't at her apartment, not at the restaurant. Her phone went dark, but then came the twist. The private investigator handed him a file with trembling hands. Inside, Maya's employment records, her address, a birth certificate, and one more thing, a letter from Nicholas's former college roommate, dated 1993. Nick, you'll never know what it cost me to raise her alone, but Maya deserves better than secrets. When she's ready, let her find you. The signature, David Holloway, his former best friend. Nicholas froze. Maya was David's daughter, but that meant she wasn't just a waitress. She was the daughter of the man Nicholas betrayed 30 years ago in a hostile takeover. The man who died broke, while Nicholas thrived. Now the daughter had unknowingly stood before him and challenged him. The next morning, Nicholas was in his penthouse when Eli rolled into the living room, without the nurse. For the first time, Eli looked directly at his father. "I want to dance with her again," Eli said. Nicholas nearly dropped his coffee. "You spoke?" he whispered. Eli nodded. "She listened. She didn't see the chair. She saw me." It hit Nicholas like a bullet. All these years, Eli had waited for him to stop being a CEO and start being a father, and he had failed. That night, Nicholas tracked Maya to a community center in the Bronx. She was teaching a dance class to disabled children, her movements fluid, fearless, like nothing in the world could break her. He stood in the back, unnoticed, until her eyes found him. Everything stopped. "What do you want?" she asked, voice cold. Nicholas stepped forward. "To say, I'm sorry." Maya didn't blink. "For what? The video? Your reputation? Or for what you did to my father?" Nicholas felt the air leave his lungs. "You know, I found the letter last year. I didn't plan this. But when I saw your son, I saw myself." Silence. Then, "I failed your father," Nicholas whispered. "But I won't fail you or Eli." Nicholas made a call. 3 days later, a charity gala was held. Again, same ballroom, same lights. But this time, a different ending. Eli was center stage. Maya stood beside him. Nicholas didn't sit in the corner. He stood in the crowd and applauded. And then, he stepped onto the dance floor and joined them. Nicholas Vance stood under the grand chandelier as his son Eli, in his wheelchair, led a coordinated dance with Maya. Cameras were flashing, but for once Nicholas didn't care about the headlines. He wasn't there for the board, or for legacy. He was there for his son, and maybe to reclaim something he'd buried long ago. But Maya still hadn't forgiven him. After the dance, she pulled him aside. Her eyes weren't angry, they were searching. "You're not the man my father wrote about," she said. Nicholas took a shaky breath. "I know. I still don't trust you." "You shouldn't." A long pause. "But I want to earn it," he said. "For Eli, for David, for you." 2 days later, Nicholas stunned the world. In a live press conference, he stood before cameras and said, "I'm donating half my company's annual profits to a new foundation, the Maya Holloway Fund for Disabled Children." He stepped aside as Maya and Eli rolled onto the stage to thunderous applause. "But that wasn't all," he continued. "I also want to share something else. This woman beside me is not just a hero to my son. She's the daughter of a man I once wronged. Today I ask for her forgiveness, not just privately, but publicly. Because legacies aren't built by power, they're built by people who rise above it." Later that evening, Nicholas sat by Eli's bedside. His son, glowing, joyful, looked up and said something that would stay with him forever. "You were never really here before, Dad. Now you are." Nicholas leaned down and kissed his forehead. "No more missing moments," he whispered, "ever again." A week later, Nicholas received a letter, handwritten, no signature. "I still don't know if I forgive you, but what you did mattered. My father once believed you could change. Maybe he was right." Nicholas folded the letter and placed it inside his suit pocket, next to the only other letter he'd kept for 30 years. Months passed. The Maya Holloway Foundation became a global movement. Eli became its youngest ambassador. He danced. He spoke. He led. Maya became director of the largest inclusive arts academy in the state. And Nicholas? He stepped down from his CEO position, by choice, not in disgrace, but in peace. The man who once ruled boardrooms now volunteered in dance halls. The father who once barely spoke to his son now danced beside him every weekend. Because sometimes, All it takes is one dance, one moment of courage, and one person who sees you to change everything.